Ooh, there we go. Okay. Hi, my name is Ghost, and sorry it's going to be a little bit of a quiet conversation here because it's kind of super late, and I have no internet right now because wonderful college apartment. It's fun, isn't it? Um, so today I wanted to go over a few things, primarily the combat patch and how it's been doing so far, and then I also have a few kind of little tidbits that I thought I'd share with you guys on things that are coming up that haven't been confirmed or guaranteed, but I have heard some rumors that I think you guys might be interested in. So for the first thing, the combat patch, we have more controllable RNG. Just these are thoughts, and I'll kind of get into them as we go through. More controllable RNG. The Raven Clan does look viable, but in the right hands, and then a dangerous base tile RNG. Sorry, I heard a motorcycle. I thought it was my phone. So when I say more controlled RNG, I'm primarily talking about the competitive scene and how RNG greatly impacts it. So in Northgard, as you already know, pretty much the entire game, or at least the map that players will always play on, is completely RNG or random number generated. So I might play spawn with two forest one game. I might spawn with two food tiles the next game. It's very chance. While this is very fun and enjoyable, the units or the creeps or neutral camps that live on those tiles, i.e. the wolves or draugrs or in some cases Valkyries, can be very kind of RNG in themselves. In one game, you might play against wolves that just never attack you on hard mode. And sometimes on easy mode, you might have four draugrs just march onto your food tile and you're kind of just SOL. This, at least in my opinion, is kind of one of the biggest hindrances that we will probably see in terms of a longevity community, because of the kind of RNG that will affect the competitive aspect of the game. And when I say competitive, I mean people that are interested in playing Northgard competitively. And though the developers haven't really kind of shown much interest in competitive Northgard, I think that this game does have a lot of promise to be a competitive game. But again, like I said, for the first aspect, it needs to be there can be RNG. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be, but I think that there should be some equality to the RNG. So what I mean by that is if you have three kings versus three kings, right? So it's level playing field. Both teams have very solid, players on both sides. If you have one team that gets, and this is assuming we're playing on hard difficulty where the neutral camps will pretty much always try and murder you. If one team deals with four draugrs, three wolves, and two giants, through a blizzard, right? And the other team deals with maybe a wolf at most, you know, that's going to put a massive hindrance on how one team plays the other. And at least if I was on either of those teams and I won or lost, I can't really say that I would say that it was a fair game because I was on the receiving end of all those, the Draugr, wolves, and giants, and or I wasn't on the receiving end, and I got to enjoy a pretty, not busy blizzard, but I was only having to worry about starvation and not the four wolves on my food tile. So it becomes a very, I almost want to say unfair advantage just purely off of numbers. And while I think that that does, add an interesting aspect, if at least in my opinion, the devs are going to want to push for a competitive scene, they're gonna need to find some way to make it equal. So yes, I don't mind if four draugrs, three wolves, and two giants attack my team, as long as I know at some point the same is going to be done to the other team. I think that that's really all I could ask for. If I'm gonna get attacked by three draugrs, that's fine. It's gonna happen. It's RNG. It's hard mode. Things happen. But I want to make sure my opponents also have the same um, kind of challenge, if you will. I think in the patch notes they had mentioned a what was the right word? Reprioritization or something, or basically redivision of the base tiles. I kind of want to see the same thing with the neutral camps, where if I get attacked, you're also getting attacked. It doesn't have to be at the same time, but at least at some point you're going to get attacked by an equal number of draugrs as me, and that's all I'd really look for. The next topic is the Raven Clan looks viable only in the right hands. So, at least in my opinion, these are the top. This is from the strongest to weakest. The top 5 clans. So, Goat currently, at least in my opinion, is still the strongest and most viable clan. Their food is good, their defensive is strong, and very often they can raise an army just as quick as they lost an army because of the ability to upgrade their breweries and have basically plus 15 happiness after they throw away an entire army. That's, that's incredible rebound strength. The bear, they're shield bearers. I mean, that the shield bearer buff plus the cheapness of getting shield bearers is just, it's very strong, So the goat is the strongest. The bear is pretty much a very strong second. And then the third place, I kind of have it more of a toss-up between both the stag and the raven. The stag, because they're kind of just a solid clan right now. There's nothing really amazing or special about them in the sense that, if I want a clan that's for economy and military, I can pretty much go for the goat. If I want one that's, more or less a slightly better wolf, in terms of last patch, I go for bear. The stag is kind of just a clan that is, it's usable, it's viable, but you need to know how to play the stag. And the same thing can pretty much be said about the raven, and that's why they're both kind of tied for third, because the raven clan can be quite viable. I believe before or at least during the combat patch, we got the extra mercenary, but it also cost us, an extra, I think it was like 40 gold, so it went up to 280, which after the devs realized this was a bit, excessive, we were given the opportunity to lower it down to 200, and now, a week later after the changes to the clan, I do feel like the Raven clan does have an opportunity, but if it's a 2v2, you're only going to see goat and bear. If it's a 3v3, maybe you'll see Raven, but very likely, if it's a 3v3, I would want to have goat, bear, bear, or double goat bear. It's just such a stronger and more viable option. And then, of course, leading up bringing up the pack, ironically, is the wolf. At least in terms of combat effectiveness, they can clear tiles, and that's pretty much it. They do have some damage. That's pretty much it. The warriors do feel like they are actually quite strong and viable for clans other than the bear, so you'll often see a lot of warrior meta kind of coming to play, but because the axe throwers have been pretty much just brutalized and nerfed into submission just because of how strong they once were, you kind of have this massive balance swing now where, it used to be pure wolf all day every day, and now it's shield bearer warrior all day every day, because the pendulum always swings in the opposite direction typically when one clan becomes extremely overpowered. And the wolf in general just kind of, it lacks a much stronger late game, or at least a mid game in any sort. The meta used to be pretty much the game was over by 802, maybe 803 at the least. Now most games end maybe 804, 805, especially if you have good players, maybe even 803. So that's, there's a very big meta shift, which is, I think, for the better. But I also think that maybe the wolf might need, I wouldn't want to say a buff, because I think that people are still kind of scared of the wolf being buffed again, but maybe a lesson of the nerf at least. Alright, and for the last one, dangerous base tile RNG. Now, this topic, pretty much just, it's in the current Northgard game meta thing. On the patch notes, it mentioned redistribution of the base tiles. So you always had 2 spawn tiles, and then at least if you had your eye out for the the consistencies in the RNG, you typically had either 2 or 3 food tiles. Sometimes. RNG is one of those wonderful things where sometimes you spawn with everything and sometimes you don't. And there's this nice little line graph of sometimes you do good, sometimes you don't. And I think that really needs to be changed, especially if you're playing on hard, and especially if you're playing as Raven. There's been, I've played probably 4 or 5 games now at least, where I chose Raven because I clicked random and it gave me no food tiles. And you just starve and die, because Raven already is kind of on the frailer side in terms of clan strength, and when you have no food tiles for pretty much any clan, it's just difficult, and then especially with a weaker clan, it can be even worse. So this kind of goes into again, having some consistency, and I would really like to see this maybe if we do have a competitive scene where if it's a 2v2 or a 3v3, players will spawn with identical spawns compared to their allies. So if you have a 3v3, for example, one player on one team will have the exact same spawn as another player on the other team. So if you have, two bears, both bears spawn with this, start with the same spawn. Or if you have, two goats, obviously this is just purely theory crafting, but it would be nice to see some at least consistency. So like, for example, when you start a game, there's always 2 free tiles that you can always colonize to, right? Making one of those tiles a guaranteed food tile, regardless of what's going on for, I think, any clan, I feel like it's very important. And then also making sure that that tile isn't just a fish tile or, fertile lands fish tile, because there's been a few cases where, again, either spawn good or spawn bad. I had one tile, my natural expansion was like a four space, open field and a fish tile. RNG giveth and RNG taketh, but when my allies had 3 deer tiles, I was like, hey, that's pretty good. I wish I had some of that myself, but things happen. So that's just kind of at least a few things that I've noticed with the combat patch and how it's been going. It is still a very good change, and I think that Shiro Games is definitely on the right track. There's just a few things that I would like to see them kind of steer towards and away from in terms of both more controlled RNG, Raven looking viable, but in the right hands, and I mean that very much so. War Chiefs, you don't know how to play Raven. I love you guys with all my heart and soul, but when I see you guys go, oh, Raven Clan doesn't, Raven Clan needs another buff. No, they are good. You just need to know how to play them well. And I'm going to be honest, I really don't know how to play them well because, like I said, if RNG giveth me 3 food tiles, I'm okay. I'll sit in my base and I'll get my mercs and I'll throw them, at the shores and they'll die while my allies push, the front lines, and I'll just, piss them off in the back. Going pure mercenaries and then raging at your team because they, you did nothing all game is not gonna help the situation. But that's another story for a different time, because that's a whole nother thing, which we call multiplayer etiquette. But we'll get to that later. And then dangerous base tile energy. I'm fairly certain I spelled dangerous wrong, but it's like 3 in the morning. I'm tired. So one last thing, because I did mention, I did hear some rumors on another note. Very, very descriptive, right? So a little birdie told me from a friend who knew a guy who works at Shiro Games, that they have started working on baby Wyrms. And I actually met with the source and I started streaming with him for a little bit, and he casually mentioned that they are working on some stuff with the Wyrms and giving players a better opportunity to kind of interact and experience them. So I thought that maybe we could just kind of spend just a quick couple minutes kind of just throwing some theories out there and what we could maybe do. So the first thing that I thought that we could see is maybe a dedicated unit, and I don't know where if he mentioned it or maybe if I read it from another source, but there's going to be a lot of kind of things enveloping the Wyrm that the player can do. Oh, and he also, my little birdie mentioned, the Wyrm that you see in the multiplayer is not the largest dragon we will see in not just the game itself, but also in the campaign. So I'm pretty excited to see how that's going to be playing out. But so I'm fairly certain we might even see a unit that is dedicated to maybe interacting with the Wyrm, or maybe it's just a matter of sacrificing units to try and steal little baby dragon eggs and take them back to your house, and then I get to cue the How to Train Your Dragon music, and we can have a whole montage about that, and it would be really cool. So love to hear you guys' thoughts about what we can do, or what you guys think we can do with baby dragons. But that seems pretty cool. So Shiro Games is clearly on the ball about that stuff, and I'm pretty excited to see how the champagne will be coming out. I think is later in either November or December. I know that they had mentioned that the campaign should be coming out near and around there. So that's pretty much everything I had for today, guys. Thank you to everyone that was here to experience this, please let me know how you guys think about the new combat patch, and or what do you guys think about dragons, and do you think we'll see more dragons? So with that, I hope you guys have a good afternoon, good night. I'll see all you guys later, and I will see you soon. Bye bye. Bye bye.